Hi, I'm Allyson Robinson. I'm one of the group of transgender pastors and educators and counselors who looked at Advent and Christmas and Epiphany. When we looked at our connections to these holy days, there were a couple of stories that came immediately to my mind. A few months ago, I was flying to another city across the country for a meeting, and I'd been assigned the middle row seat, and I'd just finished putting away my carry-ons when this young family approached. It was a man and his pregnant wife and a soon-to-be big brother who was about 2 years old. And when I realized they'd been assigned the seats to my right and left, I volunteered to move to another seat so that they could have some room to spread out and get comfortable. And while I waited for the flight attendant to find me another seat, that harried young mom thanked me over and over again. And I said, it's no trouble at all. I know what it's like to travel with kids. Well, how many do you have? She said. And when I told her that I have 4, she looked me up and down and said, "Honey, you look incredible." And it took me just a minute to realize that she assumed that I was my children's biological mom, and that the truth of the matter, that I'm actually a trans woman and really I'm their biological dad, was completely invisible to her. Well, a few weeks ago, I had a very different experience. I was on my way to work, and I had just come up out of the subway and was walking that few blocks to my office when a man, a stranger, stopped me to ask me a question. I don't even remember what it was, but my answer didn't satisfy him, and he got angry, and he closed in on me, close enough to pick up some subtle cue that caused him to suspect that I was transgender. And he loudly yelled an accusation to that end in front of probably hundreds of people, accompanied by slurs, and as I was walking away, I could feel my cheeks flush with anger and embarrassment. As transgender people, many of us focus a lot of energy on the way that the world reads us, and perhaps more importantly, on the way that the world interprets us. When people look at us, we want to know, what do they see? What do they think? The feeling of being incorrectly interpreted by others, that starting point of the transgender experience for many of us, is reminiscent of Jesus' own starting point. The flawed expectations that were placed upon him by years of national oppression and years of anticipation threatened to overwhelm him from the very beginning. And yet, in spite of the pressure, Jesus refused to let those expectations deter him from becoming the person he knew himself to be. The Advent, Christmas, Epiphany cycle can bring comfort to God's transgender children and to all of us by reminding us that much of the world read Jesus wrong and interpreted his incarnation, the embodiment of his personhood, incorrectly. And this cycle can inspire us by showcasing Jesus' courage and his insistence on his own sense of identity, despite being misread by nearly everyone who knew him.